Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So this week I wanted to cover a little something different than what I usually cover on the channel, and for those that are in the know, in 2 days time of the posting of this video, we'll get a very long-awaited episode to One Piece. And with this, I really wanted to take some time and talk about a facet of Oda's writing in One Piece that I think is done incredibly well. And now, of course there's a lot of praise that Eiichiro Oda has gotten for One Piece, over the course of its series. His characters, their story, the power systems, the foreshadowing. But one thing that I really want to highlight here is the world building and how the characters play a role in shaping the world of the story. His writing portrayal of government, politics, and factions within the story is something that jumps out very strongly to me. And now, anyone can write kingdoms, governments, organizations, and factions within their story. They can serve as the opposing force to protagonist, or they can just serve as a facet or just a little bit of flavoring to add into a part of your world. And as has been very clearly shown in One Piece, the government itself is a very large opposing force to people, the truth, and characters as a whole. And now, so first, just to clarify, there's going to be a ton of spoilers within this video. If you're not good with that, well, come back after Wano. I don't know what else to say. The spoilers for this episode have been blown out of proportion for the last year or so. Even the fan art that I'm drawing for this video is in and of itself a spoiler. Regardless, getting into the video, now that I've had my disclaimer, I just want to go over just a few of the different factions and groups that exist and have existed within the world of One Piece that really add into this complexity of its world building. So, to start with, we have the world government. These are the officials and big heads that decide everything to the common people. Their laws, their legislation, basically how they live and what things are and aren't allowed. This is the group that's deciding this. And then the people that are carrying out these decrees are the Marines. The Marines are the ones who keep everything in order, and they're the ones who take orders from the world government. And then sort of affiliated with the world government and the Marines, we have/had the warlords of the sea. And while they existed, they were pirates that allied themselves with the Marines and world government, and they could basically act as they please. However, they were more so just called in to be additional military support. This was a group composed of incredibly strong pirates, and as a result of this, they had a lot of power and a lot of sway, and were used to help enforce the agenda of the world government. And then, of course, we also have the Emperors of the Sea. And these emperors are 4 huge name pirates with incredibly large territories and battalions of crews that are under their command, as well as even just people under their protection. And then, of course, in addition to all of these major world-altering factions and groups, you also have all of the individual kingdoms and islands littered through North, East, South, and West Blue, as well as the Grand Line itself. And that's a ton of groups all playing different parts within this greater world. And yes, when I say that all of them are playing parts, I mean all of them. Each one of them is constantly acting and reacting to the chaos and the new information surrounding them in order to push forward their agendas. And you might expect that a majority of episodes and chapters would be about the crew, the Straw Hat crew, their goals, and where they're going next. And granted, this is very true. But sometimes we see that entire chapters and scenes and even episodes are dedicated to showcasing the outcome to different political events within the world of One Piece. Oda has to show what things are happening politically and how those actions are slowly shifting the landscape of the story itself. And now going back to these agendas I was mentioning before, these agendas can be anything. Making money, discovering weapons, finding the One Piece, rule the world, or simply just tend to the peace of their own country. And all of these are agendas we've seen in the story so far and will likely see again. But despite how different all of these players are from one another, they are much more intertwined than it really seems. When one group falters, another group swoops in and gets stronger for it. And granted, we don't always see how this is going to play out, but we do see them begin to develop over the course of the story as a whole. For example, as I previously mentioned with the Warlords of the Sea, these are a group of pirates that allied themselves with the Marines and would work with them for specific missions and just keeping order. However, this is a system that was abolished because of how corrupt it was and how many people were harmed because the system was allowed to exist. And we really start to see the abolishment of the Warlords of the Sea at the end of the Alabasta arc. Alabasta itself is a country. It's a very desert country, and it was governed by Crocodile from the shadows, and all of this was done in an attempt for him to control the country and gain knowledge of this ancient weapon called Pluton. He terrorized the people, and after Luffy and the Straw Hat crew took Crocodile and his lackeys down and freed up the country, and the knowledge of the corruptness of the warlords then started gaining more awareness. Previously, people looked at Crocodile as if he was some kind of hero or even a god. And then it was through these actions of the Straw Hat Pirates that even the world government started to kind of take off the rose-colored glasses and begin to see what the Warlord of the Sea system really was. Now, fast forward after the time skip, we appear in Dressrosa where the crew aims to take down the Smile Factory with Law in an attempt to weaken Kaido. Dressrosa was previously ruled by the royal family, but then it was overtaken by Don Quixote Doflamingo and his crew, the Don Quixote Familia. Using some of his crew's devil fruits and many other incredibly underhanded tactics, Doflamingo silenced and weakened any force that would oppose him, literally torturing and turning the people of the country against the royal family and even themselves, dividing and segregating the people and going so far as even attempting to destroy, and I'm saying that for, YouTube things, destroy everyone on Dressrosa with the birdcage. Now, saying he did a ton of horrible things is kind of an understatement. But then, Luffy and the crew come along, beat Doflamingo up, and then we see this power vacuum very briefly open up within the country. After Doflamingo is imprisoned by the government, the previous royal family steps back up and rules the country again. And then shortly after this, we see that the warlord system is terminated. The people and even kingdoms that have hosted the warlords of the sea have been furious at the years-long treatment and torment that they, their families, and their kingdoms have needed to suffer for the warlords to exist. And so after a meeting of all of the rulers in One Piece at the Reverie, the government puts a hit on the warlords again, deeming them just ordinary pirates that should be captured. And I really want to showcase just how involved the world is with its factions by taking a deeper look at Trafalgar Law's plan. His original goal, as well as Luffy's, was to take down Kaido as one of the emperors of the sea. To do that, they took out the SAD factory on Punk Hazard. Then they took out the Smile processing units on Dressrosa. And then they went to take down Kaido. By taking out SAD and Smile, they knew that this would significantly weaken Kaido's army and then give them a better chance of winning. However, due to these actions, they shook up the entire weapon-dealing black market. Because actually, too, yes, Doflamingo was dealing weapons to other countries. In addition to this, they freed hundreds of prisoners, political prisoners as well, rulers, citizens, and many others that were stuck under the terror of Doflamingo, and they also put the final nail in the coffin for the warlord system. And mind you, these were secondary things they accomplished. They weren't even aiming to do half of this stuff at first. They were literally just aiming to take down the factories and then beat up Kaido. All of these were other things that just happened because they took out Doflamingo. And with this, tons of other further reactive effects came into play. For example, because Doflamingo was captured by the government, countless pirates and other organizations couldn't get their weapons. So Buggy the Clown came in and filled that power vacuum and became incredibly wealthy. Now, I know that this was a lot of lore and it's really going into depth about a lot of the intricacies within One Piece, but it really does go to show you just how tied up everything in the world is. By moving one piece, a dozen new events start to come into play. When an organization falls, a new one comes in to assume its place, position, and possibly even its role as well. And this both proactive and reactive world just makes the style of world building feel so real. Yes, you do have some incredibly nonsensical characters that inhabit this world, but this continual cause and effect that we see built up over literally hundreds of chapters captures just how violently the world as a whole changes when each faction moves. And as each faction grows and accumulates more power, they decide how everything is going to be run. Power, society, truth, justice. The group at the top is the one responsible for dictating how the world is run, and everyone is vying for that position. And amidst the ever-shifting chaos, that's where everything gets decided on which faction is going to run the world next. When one faction falls, another faction rises to take its place. and there's often a wake of chaos and change that happens to the world and the people that live within it as this new power gets settled into their new position at the top. So when you're making your stories with things like warring kingdoms, factions, or deep politics, ask yourself, how do these groups move? What does each one stand for and want? And what would happen to the world if one of these factions was forcibly ripped out or came into an immense amount of power overnight? And for the most part, that's all I wanted to cover today in this world building advice video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then please like the video and subscribe for even more writing and advice and story analysis content. And in the meantime, keep smiling, keep scheming, and I'll see all of you next time.